morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're watching or listening. My name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be discussing quite the rudimentary topic regarding the relationship between the states and the union government as per the perspective of Mr. Nicholas J. Fuentes. Now, I'm sure you've heard, unless you've been living under a rock, that recently Mr. Fuentes partook in an interview with Mr. Tucker Carlson, and near the end of the interview, Mr. Fuentes demonstrated or displayed his opinion regarding the relationship between the states and the union government. Let's go ahead, take a quick look at his position on that relationship, and we'll come back here, provide you some historical context as to whether or not his take, his position, is correct or not.
I literally can't handle it. I'm so upset by it. I haven't looked at anything.
It's disgusting. And I saw that and said, yeah, like, there's no putting the genie back in the lamp here. That was one. The other thing I'm really worried about is what's happening at these ICE detention centers, where it's happening not far from where I live in Broadview, Illinois, where they set up an ICE detention facility, and the administration is rounding these people up, which I support, but they're doing it in a very provocative way. They're broadcasting it. They're making hype edits on Twitter of like these raids on apartment complexes, which I think are very cool, but it's somewhat provocative. And Antifa's showing up. In order to protect ICE, the administration's putting DHS. Well, now they're protesting the DHS presence, and the administration of the governor of Illinois and the mayor of Chicago are telling Chicago police, don't help ICE. And they're encouraging the protesters. And what I see there is like a level of tension that just keeps increasing.
Yes.
And there's leadership. There's civilian leadership on both sides. Like the governor and mayor, who are Democrats, won't back down versus a Republican president. There's a security division too, the police versus ICE, the police versus DHS. There's a constitutional question about the federal supremacy, you know, and I see all the ingredients of like a low boil civil conflict, full-blown civil war. And I'm not that guy, but I see all the ingredients there for that to happen. So I'm deeply concerned about where that will go.
How would you handle it if you were in charge? If you're the president, what do you do about that?
I think maybe this is controversial, but they have to crush the other side. They have to, because you can do one of two things. You cannot challenge the left and let them do their thing, or you can utterly confront them and defeat them and remove hope from the equation. If you resist, you will be arrested. Like, this is an insurrection. There's 10 million people here illegally. We're getting them out. You're rioting. You're going to jail too. Like, it has to be crushed. But if you do anything less than that, if you do in the middle, all you're doing is antagonizing and feeding the other side. And if they think there's a chance they can win, they will get bolder and stronger, and they'll start to rally. And that's when it's sort of like people think it's close or like it's contentious. That's when it breathes. That's when oxygen is fed to this kind of fire. So if I were Trump, I would say, screw 200 National Guard, like arrest the mayor of Chicago, like arrest the governor, shut it down, like make it clear, like Washington, you know, bring in the troops and say the federal government is supreme. The immigration law is the law of the land. If you're not on board with that, you're going to jail. If you attack ICE or box them in with your car, you're going to jail for a long time. Anything less than that, you might as well just not even bark up that tree at all.
Nick Fuentes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Excellent. So, thankfully, he made very clear his position on what he believes to be the relationship between the union government and the states. He believes the federal government is supreme, that whenever the state governments and the civil or the civilly elected individuals like the mayor or the governor go against the will of the federal government, well, they should just be arrested. They should be taken away. The governments should be completely trampled, should be absolutely and utterly destroyed. And there's a case to be made for that. However, it's not the case or permitted authority granted by the U.S. Constitution or any of the state constitutions. Oh, well, Caleb, why are you grandstanding on this? Why are you holding such a standard when obviously, such as Mr. Fuentes was making clear, when the rules haven't been applied in terms of illegal immigration, things such of that matter. And the point is, the position of constitutionality has to be upheld regardless of what jersey you're wearing or who is currently holding office. That's the whole point of having, as John Locke said, a government of laws, not of men. Regardless of who is violating the terms of this contract that we've all agreed to obey, regardless of who is violating the terms, the violation cannot be binding. That's said repeatedly by the founders, even people like Hamilton. So real quickly, I would like to refer y'all, if you want a clear explanation of the relationship between the states and the federal government as per the founders. So the author of the U.S. Declaration of Independence, Mr. Thomas Jefferson, and then the father of the U.S. Constitution, James Madison, strongly encourage all of y'all to go and watch the Calhoun School of Law lecture about the Kentucky Resolution of 1798, the Kentucky and Virginia Resolution of 1798. Thomas Jefferson passed the Kentucky resolutions, or wrote the Kentucky resolutions of 1798. Madison wrote the Virginia resolutions of 1798, both of which said not only can the states nullify actions from the federal government, but that they are obligated, duty-bound, to nullify, render void any actions from the federal government which are unconstitutional. Well, Caleb, that sounds like chaos, because then the states can determine what is and what isn't going to be obeyed. That's exactly right. And that's the terms of the U.S. Constitution. For all of you who think that's crazy, for all of you who think that's chaotic, please take it up with the founders. Take it up with the framers. Specifically, you can go and read the Federalist Papers. It starts around 30 or 32, and then the topic ends around 45 or 48. But Madison and Hamilton directly address this topic of the relationship between the states and the federal government. Between those sets of Federalist Papers, they even directly address things like standing armies. That when a standing army, such as ICE, such as the U.S. Army, such as the U.S. National Guard, whenever a force like that is raised by an energetic or ambitious government, Madison, the father of the U.S. Constitution, said the citizens of the states are duty-bound, obligated to resist both diplomatically and physically that standing army. Because why? Because standing armies are the number one enemy of a free citizenry. So, regardless who is violating the terms of the contract, that being the U.S. Constitution, the violation is null and void. That's not just me saying that. That's Samuel Adams saying that. That's Alexander Hamilton saying that. That's Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, George Mason, John Dickinson, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, John DeWitt. All of these framers almost unanimously agree the states are the appellate authority, not the federal government. And both Federalists and the Anti-Federalists agreed on this. If you give the federal government the reins to determine how far the extent of their powers are, the federal government has infinite power. There's no reason for the Supreme Court to say, nope, the federal government can't do that. No reason. Nada. Zip zilch. Please go watch the Federalist Papers lecture series, specifically from number 30 to about 45 to 48. They directly address this. If you want a summary of what Madison and Jefferson thought about the relationship between the states and the Union, go watch the lecture on the Kentucky resolutions. I think we included the Virginia Resolution 1798, where Thomas Jefferson overtly says, the states are the sovereign. The states are the ultimate determiners of constitutionality. Caleb, those didn't work. Are you so sure? Because the legislation and the laws changed. They weren't enforced as they were originally written, which means they worked. So to speak directly to Mr. Fuentes, I understand your frustration. I really do. And I understand that there are certain people that have been constantly violating the U.S. Constitution. And in fact, those violations are what brought about this problem, which you were seeking an unconstitutional resolve to fix. The answer isn't to then further breach the violations of the contracts, and it's also not to turn over. It's not to grant amnesty to all of these violations. Instead, it is to use the U.S. Constitution to remedy for times when it is violated. There are far better modes by which to resolve this problem. Caleb, how? Very fast. We've covered it in a number of different lectures. Posse comitatus, deputize the citizens, stop federal funding. That last one's not supposed to exist anyways. States are not supposed to be getting federal funding. Federal government is not supposed to be stealing from one state and giving it to another state. Giving the resources that are collected from states like Texas and giving them to states like Rhode Island, Connecticut, or California. That's not the job of the federal government. That's outlined very clearly in the Federalist Papers. And then, of course, primary accounts from individuals like Robert Yates at the actual debates. But that's how you do it. You don't turn the stomachs of the founders in their graves even further by deploying U.S. military assets onto domestic soil. No. Instead, use the U.S. Constitution. Posse comitatus, stop federal funding. If the citizens want to let their state burn, let them burn down their state. But you as the federal government do not get to step in preemptively and declare that there's an insurrection. The state has to declare it. Speak directly to what Mr. Fuentes said. As a conclusion to this lecture, no. The federal government is not supreme. It is not superior over the states. The states formed the Union, not vice versa. The Union is formed for the benefit of the states, not vice versa. Even James Madison, the father of the U.S. Constitution, said the U.S. Constitution is not forming a country, nation, or a state. It is forming a union, a friendship, the term used in the Articles of Confederation, a friendship between equal, independent, sovereign states. To say that the U.S. government is supreme over the state governments is directly akin to saying the United Nations government is supreme over the U.S. And President Trump made very clear the other day that he fully intends to nullify the actions of the UN. So if a member to the United Nations, a member to a union, can nullify the actions of the union, in order to be intellectually honest and consistent, you then have to say the states who are members to the United States can also nullify the actions of the union. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, concerns, disagreements, please throw etiquette out the door. Let me hear them down in the comments. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of disagreement. Let me hear them down in the comments. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover in a future lecture, also post those down in the comments, because the point of the Calhoun School of Law is not to wear the R jersey or the D jersey or the C or L jersey or even the I jersey. It is to find, seek truth, and to provide it to you so that you are better equipped to handle this impending hostile lawfare state that is ever growing and will be ever present in our future. That lawfare state that will, not if, but will come to arrest you, your loved ones, or your hard-earned property. So please, if you have any questions at all, post them down in the comments. Excellent. So my name is Caleb Glick. I'm a lawyer here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information that plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. I hope you enjoyed this lecture, and if not, while you're down in the comments, go ahead and let me know how I can do better so I can best serve that purpose of helping you. Hope you'll have a wonderful day, and I'm not sure what the topic for the next lecture is going to be, but I'll do my best to make it as informative and entertaining as this one, if not more so. Regardless of the topic of the next lecture, until I see y'all then, I bid you all